What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Atlas Hour. Today, I figured we would crush the pseudoscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman, neurobiologist at Stanford. I mean, what is that even? I feel like anybody can be a neurobiologist at Stanford. Come on. I hope you sense my sarcasm. I have immense respect for Dr. Andrew Huberman. Actually, interestingly, him and I have a very, very similar upbringing. We grew up in very similar areas of the United States in the California Bay Area, skateboarding. He was about a generation above me, and we have some mutual friends, which is interesting. So we both started out as skate rats, little hoodlums, and made something of our lives. So I have a lot of respect for him for that, but also just I feel like he is a great contributing member to society. I see a lot of hate for him through like other, evidence-based scientists. It's insane to me because of all of the things, the crazy things that people spew, I feel like Huberman is definitely the most evidence-based and just super simple. He kind of came about in a time when people wanted answers to make themselves feel better. I mean, there's a lot of people who were just going through the status quo of what medicine tells us to do, or what the man, if you will, or the governing societies tell us what to do, and they were feeling very unhappy. They were feeling uncomfortable, unhappy, depressed, unsatisfied with their lives. And it's funny because when you listen to Huberman's stuff, nothing is insane. Nothing's crazy monumental like this groundbreaking stuff. He literally tells us to do what normal human beings have been doing for centuries, right? He tells us to get some sunlight, to go outside, to sleep well, to try to eat as many unprocessed foods as possible. And nothing that he's saying is too insane. It's not like he's giving these crazy claims like some people are that you can't eat this. And I don't know. I don't want to get into bashing anybody here. And this isn't going to be a bash on Huberman. So I just want to talk about his stance on melatonin in particular. But again, I just have immense respect for him. I can't believe that there's people out there who are bashing him in any way because I feel like everything he's doing is great for society. And I'm happy that he's gained the popularity that he has because that stuff needs to be heard. I do joke that you can kind of get a feeling of how we are as a society by looking at the popularity of Huberman. And that's to say that we needed somebody to tell us that we should go outside more often and that we should sleep 8 hours a night, that we should exercise. My friend Dave Lee says, he says that the best things that one can do is just do the things that your grandma would have told you to do, which is, eat a good balanced diet, go outside, work hard, play with your friends, et cetera, et cetera. Now we need somebody to tell us that. It's just crazy. But again, I think he's done a really good job showing the science behind things that humans used to inherently know how to do and getting a lot of people to do some of that stuff. So I have immense respect for Huberman, and this will not be a bash on him. But I have been an advocate of melatonin for a long time. I've been on a few podcasts where I've talked about melatonin, and I always get like, oh, whoa, you take melatonin? Huberman says we shouldn't do that. Huberman says blah, blah, blah. Which is funny. That's a saying now in and of itself too, right? Huberman says. And a lot of what Huberman says is definitely very, very accurate. I have a lot of pushback on the stance on melatonin though. And so I wanted to kind of dive into that today. I have here, if you see me looking down a lot, it's because I have my computer in front of me so I can kind of just stay on track here, which is hard for me to do occasionally, and make sure that I touch on the points that he has said that melatonin has. So, the big one is suppression of endogenous melatonin production. So one I get a lot. And I think I was on the Mark Bell podcast when they brought this up. And I think I even said, yeah, there's probably some endogenous suppression. And I remember specifically going to the hotel after that and looking it up because I hate not knowing anything. And that's another little aside. Like we are in an age where there's no excuse to not know something if you're curious about it and don't just make shit up. I literally went and looked because I was like, shit, I actually don't know. I answered that question without knowing. I hopefully said on there, I don't know. I don't fear being or not knowing something, and you shouldn't either. I don't know is probably the most intelligent answer you can ever give. I think I said, I don't know, but there's probably some endogenous suppression because hormones tend to work that way usually. There's usually feedback loops. So when I went and looked and I really scoured the data, I've never been able to find any data that imply that there is endogenous suppression of melatonin. So I pulled up a few studies here. I mean, here's one of the first studies that I could find on it done in 1997. So back in 1997, Journal of Pineal Research, they took sample size N of 21, so that means 21 people. And they gave them exogenous melatonin for 7 days straight. And the thing that I like about this study is they gave them 50 milligrams of melatonin. 50 milligrams is a hefty dose. And I, again, have been a proponent of hefty doses of melatonin, and people always come at me like really thinking that's something bad. I'll get into why I like to take hefty doses later, but 50 milligrams. Here I've got the Gorilla Mind Dream. Let's see how much melatonin they have in it. 1.5 of the sustained release and 1.5 of the instant release. So a total of 3 milligrams, which is a pretty clinical dose. 3 milligrams is kind of the upper end of what a lot of people will take over the counter. A lot of people will take 0.3 milligrams as well. I think that's kind of known as an efficacious dose. So 50 milligrams, we would expect to see some detriment if it was going to occur, right? They gave them this dose for 37 days, and it was blind to this, 50 milligrams daily for 37 days, and resulted in no change in endogenous melatonin profile. So basically, the day after they stopped, they were still producing their own melatonin regularly. I think that, kind of proves that there's no endogenous suppression. The times that I've been able to find any endogenous suppression of melatonin, it was using rodent models. And this is something that, usually I don't mind rodent models, but we need to be very careful when we're looking at other animals versus humans for certain type of data. And this one's big because rodents they're nocturnal. So anything having to do with light and sleep is going to vary dramatically from humans. So we can't really give melatonin to a rodent in our wake cycle and expect it to have the same impact that it would on theirs. So I would argue that there is probably no endogenous, meaning your body's natural production, suppression of melatonin when you take it orally before bed. So I think that kind of debunks his claim there that there's endogenous suppression. The next really big one that, of course, everybody cares about because everybody cares about testosterone. It's such a hot topic. And I think that I'm kind of seen as somebody who knows a lot about hormones and testosterone, and most of you following me will probably be following me due to that, right? So I think that I can comment on this, and I've looked a lot at this data. And specifically, I went back and listened to his melatonin episode. He's talking about not taking melatonin in puberty. Well, I would argue or take a wild bet that most of his listeners aren't about to go through puberty and probably don't need to worry about that. Though it's good that he's putting that data out there for parents of children who may potentially be about to go into puberty or should be in puberty. And I would agree with him 100%. We should not be giving those children melatonin. And the mechanism behind that is melatonin seems to inhibit something called kisspeptin, which is a G-coupled protein receptor. Basically, what kisspeptin does is it kind of initiates the release of GnRH, gonadotropin-releasing hormone. Gonadotropin-releasing hormone stimulates the release of LH and FSH, luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone, which are known as gonadotropins, which then would normally signal to the reproductive organs to produce hormones, i.e. testosterone. So the idea there is that melatonin could inhibit that kisspeptin, inhibiting that gonadotropin-releasing hormone, inhibiting that luteinizing hormone, follicle-stimulating hormone. And indeed, that does continue to happen even after puberty. So in a normal grown adult, we would see a reduction in LH and FSH output when they took melatonin. Should you worry about this? I would argue no, and here's why. So when you take melatonin, you're likely taking it at night, right? Well, we then need to think about when is testosterone produced. Well, it's produced on what's called a diurnal rhythm, meaning it's produced in the morning. So it's likely a very normal thing that our bodies endogenously naturally produce melatonin at night, and it suppresses the production of testosterone. We're not really supposed to be producing testosterone at night. That happens in the morning. So I think that kind of plays into the natural rhythms of human life. So you take it at night, you suppress LH and FSH just like you would if you endogenously produced it. And in my opinion, it will likely be out of your system by the time that you wake up. That's part of the reason behind melatonin not working very well throughout the night. It works very well for the first few hours. It helps to put you to sleep, not keep you to sleep. So just to harp on that, I looked up the pharmacokinetics of melatonin, meaning how long it kind of processes throughout the body. And let's see, in this study, this was done in 2012, another Journal of Pineal Research paper. It was titled Melatonin Pharmacokinetics Following 2 Different Oral Surge Sustained Release Doses in Older Adults. The older adults is extremely important here because we can assume that older adults are going to have a slower metabolism of any type of drug. Their systems don't break down things as thoroughly and as effectively as we do, so things usually linger around in their systems longer than they would in us younger individuals. So let's see, they gave 2 different doses. One was less than 0.5 milligrams and a high dose of greater than 2 milligrams. And they kind of looked at the half-lives. So the time that it took to get to a maximum level was at the top high dose. I'll just talk about the high doses here. 1.5 hours, so 1.5 hours that it took to get into the system at the maximum dose. Then the elimination half-life, meaning how long it took to eliminate half of the drug, was 2 hours. So half-life of 2 hours, you can assume that by 4 to 6 hours later, the drug is probably cleared. So ideally, you should be sleeping 8 hours, meaning the even high doses of melatonin in an old adult who will be metabolizing this slower than you probably should be out of their system by around 6 hours. So it should be out of your system by the time you're waking up and by the time your normal gonadotropin releasing hormone and LH and FSH would be being released and causing you to produce testosterone. So all that to say, I don't feel like taking melatonin at night before bed is going to have a detrimental effect on your testosterone. So I'm talking about it from the mechanistic standpoint right there, and mechanistic data and research is all fine and dandy. And this is more of theory of mine. I mean, I guess I proved it right there with the half-life and everything, but let's talk about actual outcomes. So there was a study done in 2022 in the Journal of Urology on the impact of low-dose melatonin supplementation on testosterone levels in U.S. adult males. And this was a pretty robust study. The study included 7,656 participants. That's a lot. The mean age was 47 years old, so these are probably a little bit older than us and my listeners, but still a younger-ish adult. Starting, their medium total testosterone levels were 389.9. Pretty pathetic if you ask me, but not really for an almost 50-year-old man. That's kind of in line with normal testosterone levels in 2022 for that age. Hopefully higher for my listeners, but you know, it is what it is. It was 389.9. So they basically had looked at those who were reported to take melatonin. Now this isn't randomized, it isn't controlled, so that's a knock on this study. It's kind of they're looking at what the participants reported. But those taking melatonin, they found no association between melatonin intake in the past 30 days and low testosterone levels. So they kind of put in as a side here, as expected, increasing BMI. So the fatter they were, the older they were, the lower their testosterone was. But the fact that they took melatonin did not seem to impact their testosterone production. And again, that's because it's very normal that we have melatonin in circulation suppressing testosterone production at night. It's just the normal way that things happen in our body. So I think we can say that Huberman's claims as to why he thinks that one should not take melatonin are probably a little bit flawed. I don't think you're going to have natural suppression, endogenous suppression of testosterone. I don't think you're going to negatively impact your hormones. I 100% agree with him that those of you who have children, especially in that vital age, either before puberty or during puberty, likely no need to give melatonin. Melatonin should be at robust levels in young adults or even young children, young adults, etc. And it tends to decline as we age. That's why melatonin supplementation is probably more important as we age. So I don't think that children need melatonin. I don't think you need to be giving your children melatonin. If they're having trouble sleeping, they're probably not exercising enough. They're probably having too much screen time. They probably have some stressors in their life that are, some type of trauma that you need to work through with them and figure out with them. Because if a child isn't sleeping, I don't think we should just be giving them drugs or supplements like melatonin. I think that we should get to the root cause of that. Children should be able to knock out pretty hard at night and not wake up for like 10 hours. So that's another issue if you're having to give your child melatonin. So I 100% agree with Huberman on that one. When it comes to the hormones, I would not be concerned whatsoever unless you're deciding to take melatonin in the morning and all throughout the day. I don't think you're going to be suppressing your testosterone production any more than it already would if you were producing the melatonin yourself. So I think your hormones will be fine. Also, for individuals like myself and probably many of you who are enhanced to some extent, be it TRT or PEDs, we don't need to worry about our testosterone production. We got that covered. And that's why I've been a huge proponent of melatonin, because in PED users specifically, there is a lot of oxidative stress that occurs, either via injecting compounds that are slightly toxic, that have various solvents and carrier oils that our body reacts to and causes free radicals, or just the act of exercising and lifting heavy weight has a lot of oxidative burden on the body. And melatonin doesn't only help to put us to sleep. I don't take it at night to put me to sleep. I take it at night for its potent antioxidant effects. And that's why it's also very beneficial in older adults, because melatonin starts to decline as we age and they lose that antioxidant protective benefit. Melatonin has anti-cancer properties, so it's very much so a longevity drug, and in my opinion, one of the most efficacious, most powerful longevity drugs there is. So that is why I take it. And I don't have to worry about my hormones, and I don't have to worry about endogenous suppression. If I don't take it for a night, I fall asleep just fine. I've noticed that in myself. And the data is pretty clear saying it does not suppress endogenous release. So we don't need to worry about that. Cool thing about melatonin as an antioxidant is that every metabolite it's converted into is an antioxidant too, right? So there's some antioxidants that our body produces or that we have that are an antioxidant in that one form, and then they're broken down, metabolized into another compound that doesn't exert antioxidant effects. Melatonin, however, it's like antioxidant broken down into another antioxidant, broken down into another antioxidant. So it's very powerful for the entire time that it's being metabolized in our body, and that's pretty cool. So I am a proponent of melatonin. Do you need melatonin? I don't think anyone needs, well, I'll take that back. Sure, we need it. We need our natural endogenous production. Does anyone need supplemental melatonin? To live? Probably not. Could it be beneficial, especially for older people or people who are on PEDs, etc., who are exposing themselves to high levels of oxidative stress? I think it could be very beneficial, yes. So, all of this to say, I really appreciate Andrew Huberman. I think he's done a massive amount for the community or for society as a whole. He's an awesome guy from what I can tell. I've heard nothing but good things about him. I really appreciate his work, but I disagree with him on the melatonin. And it's funny, I think that him coming out and saying that kind of stuff, I don't know how to say this. I don't want to call him, somebody who is like your standard influencer who says things that rile people up. But that's the way social media works, unfortunately, is, his views on melatonin, they stuck around with a lot of people. That's why every time I bring up melatonin, so many people have something to say about it, is because as an influencer, if you can say something that goes against the grain, like don't eat vegetables or don't take melatonin, something that most people have believed to be very beneficial and almost all the data shows is okay, but you are the one who says, no, it's not. And I've kind of got a secret that none of you other people have. That's when you really blow up. And I don't think that he was maybe attempting to do that. I do think he means well in everything that he does, but it really stuck around with people, that whole melatonin thing, because it was something that went against the grain so hard. So another aside, just when you hear something that is just completely disruptive, sometimes it's true for sure, but a lot of times people are just trying to get you to buy something. And when it comes to Huberman, I don't think he's trying to get anyone to buy anything, so that's great. But if somebody's telling you not to eat vegetables or something and eat my, here's my meat product, look into that a little bit. Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about today was the beneficial effects of melatonin and pushing back a little bit on what a lot of you have kind of brought up to me when I talk about melatonin and why I have my beliefs on melatonin. If you feel differently or if you've seen different data, please feel free to drop that in the comments. I'm not a zealot about anything. Again, I completely agree with him on some of these points on melatonin. I don't think any and everybody needs to just be taking supplements or melatonin. That's probably, crazy. One other thing before I go that I remember that he talked about. See, I fucking had my notes and I didn't even look at them. Damn it. He talked about the wild inaccuracies of over-the-counter supplements. 100% agree. I don't know what to kind of tell you with that. It's, he said like some had up to like 100 milligrams of melatonin, or even though they said they were like 3. And that's probably very true. And that's the risk you run with any and every supplement. I luckily am able to get my melatonin via my doctor at Merrick Health, and I get pharmaceutical melatonin prescribed to me. So I have a lot more, I have a lot more faith that I'm getting what I think that I'm taking, or I'm getting what I think I'm getting, taking what I think I'm taking, than if I were just using over the counter. So yeah, I agree with him on that one too. So I was trying to wrap up, but I wanted to point out that I don't completely disagree with him on everything. I think he's very, very right on a lot of this stuff. These are the things that I've pushed back on. And again, please tell me if you think I'm wrong in any way. If you would like to support the channel in any way, please hit that subscribe button. It helps a ton. You can go over to gorillamind.com and use code ATLAS on your Gorilla Mind Dream if you want some melatonin, because I know I said I take pharmaceutical, and I do, but I take this as well. So I take 10 milligrams of pharmaceutical melatonin, which is considered high dose, and I have gone much higher than that as well. And I take Gorilla Mind Dreams, which is what we talked about, 3 milligrams. So a total of 13 milligrams of melatonin a night has been working really well for me. I feel like my inflammatory markers remain pretty low. I think that helps to contribute, and I sleep pretty damn well. You can also go over to atlasoptimization.com/plans, or just go to atlasoptimization.com and navigate around and sign up for nutrition coaching. Anything you can do, I greatly appreciate all of your support. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.